Hello, this is Jerry Mitchell, and we are back for another episode of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast, going over all the posts on Libertarian Uncensored subreddit. Let's get right into it. So first we have, should we create our own Libertarian Party without anarchists, Trump-tards, anti-Semites, and people who call Hillary a quote-unquote wonderful public servant, by Captain GL6, and that they added, seriously, it's fucking embarrassing. And my thoughts on that are, ultimately, all political parties are going to have some disagreements among its members. So, if you think the Libertarian Party is too progressive for you or too conservative for you, you should be free to start your own party, and that's my thoughts on that issue. I think if you want to, everyone should, should be part of whatever voluntary collectives they want to be part of. And that's my thoughts there. And we have Texas professors want to use abortion ban to punish students for consensual sexual intercourse from Salon.com by Baton 13. And they added, they also would like to punish them for being homosexual or trans. And, I think that's kind of, twisting their words. I don't think they really want that. I think they say you shouldn't be taking time off for abortions or you don't get free class time off for abortions is what they're really saying. But of course, Salon is very much a propaganda news source for progressive narratives, and that's definitely important to remember. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have all sexual and gender identities joining together to conduct no-knock raids and confiscate your firearms from LPPA. And that's on Twitter, and I posted that. And that was them quote-tweeting ATFHQ tweeted, during Pride Month, we take a moment to express our gratitude to our LGBTQI+ colleagues for their enduring support of ATF's mission and commitment to service. Learn about a diverse community at atf.gov/about/diversity. #WeAreATF. And I said, I don't care what their pronouns are, an ATF agent is an ATF agent, definitely is not on my side. I definitely think the modern Pride movement is incredibly astroturfed by big government and big business as a way to feign support for marginalized community while they continue to screw us over. And then I linked to the Wikipedia page for pinkwashing. And I noticed Chase Oliver, the Libertarian Party presidential candidate, had quite a similar take. He responded to that too. His response was, don't wrap your gun control and violence you perpetrate in the pride flag, you statist. #armed and gay. And yeah, I would agree with that. Ultimately, I definitely do think it's important to point out how the elites are using identity politics as means to market themselves as the good guys. You definitely see it a lot during June, like the FBI agents marched with in the Los Angeles Pride Parade earlier this month, and last year one of the groups that marched along in the Washington D.C. Pride Parade had a Lockheed Martin banner. So it just goes to know you, it's all really just astroturfed by the elites to downplay to divide people and distract them with other issues while they continue to screw us over. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have, so if you go on CNBC to pump your book or tweet literal bullshit as a fund manager, that's cool, but if you put your post on Reddit and command a big following, then E-Trade will ban you from Seger and Jetty on Twitter, and I posted that. And that was him reacting to a story from, I think, Wall Street Journal. E-Trade considers kicking meme stock leader Keith Gill off platform. Morgan Stanley's trading platform discusses concerns about possible manipulation in GameStop. And I said, my response was, it's a big club and you ain't it, George Carlin. Reminds me of when they closed down Robinhood back during the initial GME short squeeze. That just goes to show you that they can those in positions of power can always justify screwing the little guy over, and that's not something that I particularly care for. Then we have, perhaps Chase takes issue with Ron Paul because of his support for gay marriage bans from Rubber Stump Baby. And they said, I've seen many libertarians saying they won't vote for Oliver because Oliver expresses his dislike for Ron Paul, but I haven't seen anyone point out that as a gay man, Oliver might be more sensitive to this issue. It seems like droves of people are going to condemn Oliver on the basis alone without considering why he might not be a fan of Ron Paul. Maybe they were just looking for an excuse to vote for Trump all along, or they have idolized Ron to the extent that they can no longer tolerate anyone criticizing him. And I guess I would agree with that. If you do, I definitely really like Ron Paul, but if he stays non-infallible, I think you should be free to criticize them. But with that being said, you shouldn't be entitled to anyone's vote either. And if you don't want to support Chase Oliver over anything he says, I think you should be 100% able to do so. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have federal agents arrest former Navy 4-star admiral and year of commander alleging bribery scheme from YouTube.com by Cowdog Curmudgeon. That's a YouTube video from looks like the channel Kagan Dunlap. And, yeah, that's definitely not good. And they added, let's present this as an isolated in the fact that most civilian and military heads go to work for defense contractors as their next employer is completely a coincidence. And, you know, that's I very much, I agree with what they're setting up there. You know, the big government, big business, and the military-industrial complex, and big media, and big pharma, and pretty much all of it, they're all intertwined. You know, as I said, George Carlin said, it's a big club and you ain't in it, and that's very important to remember when it comes to the elites. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have, it's interesting seeing so many people who are very recently advocating for criminal justice reform now toss the term convicted felon so loosely from Maj Tory on Twitter, and I posted that, and that was him saying so it was never about systemic injustice to them, just an opportunity to weaponize this against who they identify as, quote-unquote, the other. These people have zero principles. And my response was, the only standards most people have are double, especially in regards to the outgroup. You know, if Reddit had its way, probably voting or supporting for Donald Trump at all would be a crime, and that's important to remember as well. So, you notice how George Floyd was never referred to as a convicted felon, despite all the media attention given to him. You only care about Trump getting labeled since he's in the out-group rather than the in-group, and that's kind of my fault in that issue. And then next we have Rise Above from Stone Toss on Twitter, and I posted that, and that was Stone Toss. It's a comic. Joe Biden says no one is above the law, and then all the migrants are climbing over the wall, and the wall says the law on it. And I said, guess Trump should just identify as an illegal immigrant. That's the left will never want to hold any of its own accountable. They love marketing themselves as a party that where all the illegals can go. And so that's why I think, maybe you could identify as trans, because trans is really big right now among the left. Maybe you could say, oh, I'm a trans, illegal immigrant, racial minority, and yeah, that's, maybe then they'd feel more sympathetic towards them, That's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have why the pandemic probably started in a lab and 5 key points from Lemon Limelight. And they said from an opinion post by molecular biologist Dr. Alina Chan in the New York Times, why the pandemic probably started in a lab and 5 key points. The pandemic could have been caused by any hundreds of virus species, and any tens of thousands of wildlife markets, in any of the thousands of cities in any year, but it was a SARS-like coronavirus with a unique fur and cleavage site that had emerged in Wuhan less than 2 years after scientists, sometimes working under inadequate biosafety conditions, proposed collecting and creating viruses of the same design. Here is the summary of 5 freaky points I'll support further in the piece. 1. The SARS-CoV-2 emerged in Wuhan, where the world's foremost research lab for SARS-like viruses is located. The virus, most similar to SARS-CoV-2, circulate in bats that live roughly 1,000 miles away from Wuhan. 2. The year before the outbreak, the Wuhan Institute, working with U.S. partners, has proposed creating viruses with fur and cleavage site. SARS-CoV-2's defining feature. 3. The Wuhan lab worked with SARS-like viruses under low biosafety conditions that could not have contained airborne viruses infected with SARS-CoV-2. 4. The hypothesis that COVID-19 came from an animal that the Hainan seafood market in Wuhan is not supposed to by strong evidence. 5. Key evidence that would be expected in the virus that emerged from the wildlife trade is still missing. Dr. Jenkins concludes with an appeal to accountability and restoring public trust. And I said, my response was, Doc Fauci still won't be held accountable, sadly. Ultimately, they might hold Donald Trump accountable, not for this, but for, other stuff he does. But most of the people involved will never be held accountable because the narrative's on their side. And sadly, when the narrative's on your side, that's going to stop you from being held accountable. And that's my thought on that issue. And we have which one of you placed this, and that was a sticker I saw on the train station yesterday. Sick of capitalism, join the communists, and there's a picture of Lenin on it. And I said, one of the worst things about living in a progressive suburb, might write heck off commie on Lenin's head later. And I did end up doing that, I did write a heck off commie on his head. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that issue. I think you should be able to post whatever you want to. But, ultimately, communists do say everything is public property. So, therefore, that sticker is my public property as well. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have forum sliding by MacFool, and they said there are some important emergent events being discussed by libertarians at this moment. Is it wise to allow one account to forum slide every topic out of sight with 5 10 irrelevant daily posts to prevent discussion and God forbid organization? Off-topic posts of music from a video game? Really? And yeah, that's my fault on that. And yeah, that was their fault on that issue. My response was, you seem to have missed Uncensored in the subreddit title. You know, they did, I think the mods did censor that, video game. I did do a post of a video of music from Far Cry 5. If you keep your rifle by your side, said that was a good song for Killdozer Day. You know, all about standing up to authoritarians and not letting them take you down. But the mods did censor that. But that being said, you know, ultimately whoever's in the position of power can censor whatever they want. And sadly, sometimes you just have to cope with that. And that's my faults on that issue. And we have Trump got convicted as a way to celebrate. Democrats decided to go fully mask off and by Ragnar OKXD, and that's crossovers from the late stage capitalism subreddit. Biden signed an executive order to close southern border to asylum seekers. And yeah, you know, I personally think this might just be theater, kind of look like he's doing the job, but I don't think he's really doing the job. You know, they're just pouring over the southern border at this point. You know, I personally am more on the open border side, but I think if people do want to enforce a border and build a wall and enforce the border, I think they should be able to. But if that being said, it ultimately does come down to who has the force, social, and economic capital to do what. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have in shift, Biden issues order allowing temporary border closure to migrants. Gift article from New York Times, Friday Clorox. And, yeah, that's kind of the same thing as what we were just talking about. Then we have Trump think tank sues to allow election officials to refuse to certify results, where both sides are the exact same people at, from RollingStone.com by Clorox. And, yeah, I definitely don't think, that's good. But, you know, ultimately, I think the Democrats probably have ways to downplay election results as well. And, that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have, which fictional character do you think is most libertarian? And I posted that and I said, I would say Batman. In Gotham City, the government and the police are corrupt and have basically failed citizens, so it's up to a private citizen, Bruce Wayne, to hold the criminals accountable for their misdeeds. I would argue that his rival for the Joker is very much symbolism for libertarianism versus anarchism. False. And then I added, you know, and the Joker, especially the 2008 and 2019 film versions, probably influenced my philosophy more so than any other fictional character, but I definitely do find Batman to be more libertarian one between them. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And yeah, and then we have Washington, D.C. primary election results from electionresults.dcboardofelections.org by Ninja Lover. And they said Wendell Felder wins, supports that with 20% of the vote. It's crazy to me that we use a system that can result in a window with only 20% of the vote. And I said, I'm not the biggest fan of voting, but I think if anyone doesn't obtain a majority of the vote, that should go to a runoff. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And I think we're going to wrap it up there. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.